Silvio Dante always appeared to be the most controlled man in Tony Soprano's orbit. While others reacted emotionally or impulsively, Silvio stayed composed. He spoke calmly, chose his words carefully, and rarely revealed what he was truly thinking. Where Tony was explosive and unpredictable, Silvio was measured and restrained. He didn't dominate conversations, he observed them. And when he did speak, it was usually to stabilize the room rather than steer it. But beneath that calm exterior, there was something else at work. If you track Silvio's behavior closely across the series, a subtle undercurrent becomes impossible to ignore. His loyalty to Tony wasn't driven purely by admiration or friendship. It was shaped by caution, not panic, not terror, but a quiet, disciplined fear. The kind of fear that doesn't paralyze you but keeps you constantly alert. The kind that teaches you when to stop talking halfway through a sentence. The kind that turns loyalty into a survival skill rather than a moral choice. From the very beginning, Silvio understood that standing close to Tony meant danger. Being one of Tony's oldest friends didn't protect him. If anything, it gave him a clearer view of what Tony was capable of. Silvio had witnessed every version of him: the charismatic leader, the ruthless killer, the insecure son, the violent animal. When you know someone on that level, trust doesn't eliminate fear. It deepens it. In the early seasons, Tony's world is already unstable. Panic attacks, family betrayals, power struggles with Junior, Livia's manipulations. Silvio watches all of it quietly. He doesn't offer bold strategies or grand solutions. When tension between Tony and Junior escalates, Silvio doesn't give decisive advice. Instead, he deflects responsibility. You gotta do what you think is right. That's not guidance, it's insulation. Silvio is carefully removing himself from the chain of blame because he knows how Tony operates when things fall apart. Tony revises history, he assigns guilt, and Silvio is smart enough to make sure his name never ends up in that narrative. This pattern repeats itself again and again. When Tony begins therapy, Silvio senses the danger immediately. He understands how reckless it is for Tony to talk openly about the business with an outsider. But Silvio doesn't confront him. He doesn't mock him either. He stays silent. Because confronting Tony on something tied to his pride or masculinity is unpredictable. Silence in this world is often safer than honesty. Silvio's entire approach to Tony is based on emotional management. He tells the truth only in forms Tony can absorb. When Richie Aprile becomes a problem, Silvio doesn't accuse Tony of losing control. He frames it differently. Richie needs reminding who's boss. The criticism is hidden inside flattery. Silvio knows Tony's ego must be preserved even when it's being corrected. That skill becomes even more critical with Ralph Cifaretto. Everyone knows Ralph is unstable. Everyone knows he's dangerous. Silvio sees the disaster coming long before it arrives. He watches Tony grow increasingly irritated by Ralph's behavior, the jokes, the violence, the disrespect. Silvio understands exactly how this will end, but he doesn't warn Ralph. He doesn't challenge Tony either, because Silvio isn't afraid of Ralph's chaos. He's afraid of Tony's reaction to being challenged. When Tony eventually kills Ralph, Silvio isn't shocked. His expression isn't horror. It's confirmation. Tony has crossed a line. Violence is no longer just business, it's emotional. From that moment on, Silvio becomes even more restrained. His sentences shorten, his tone softens. He becomes the last person who would ever openly oppose Tony. Not because he agrees with everything Tony does, but because he understands the cost of resistance. By the time Tony Blundetto enters the picture, Silvio can see the family unraveling. He knows retaliation is coming. He knows Tony is losing control. Yet his advice remains indirect. You sure about this, T? He never pushes, he never insists, because by this stage, Tony doesn't want counsel. He wants affirmation, and offering anything else is dangerous. This is the true power structure around Tony. Polly fears him, Christopher resents him, Silvio manages him. Silvio's fear is not about getting killed, it's about being cut off. In Tony's world, losing trust is worse than death. It means exile, meaninglessness. And for someone like Silvio, whose identity is built around order and hierarchy, that's unbearable. That's why Silvio never acts independently. He never schemes behind Tony's back. He never complains. His loyalty is meticulous, but it's not blind. It's calculated. This dynamic becomes most visible during Tony's coma. When Silvio steps in as acting boss, everything falls apart. His health deteriorates. His confidence collapses. Many people interpret this as weakness. It isn't. It's exposure. Silvio was never meant to be the one making final decisions. His stability came from standing beside power, not wielding it. He had watched Tony suffer under that weight for years. And when that burden lands on him, it destroys him. Silvio's breakdown isn't physical, it's existential. He finally understands what Tony lives with every day: the paranoia, the guilt, the isolation, and he wants no part of it. Even in Tony's personal crises, Silvio never oversteps. When Tony's marriage crumbles, when his depression worsens, when his addictions spiral, Silvio offers reassurance, not solutions. Not because he doesn't care, but because Tony doesn't respond well to empathy. Tony equates vulnerability with weakness. Silvio learned that lesson watching Christopher lose Tony's respect after rehab. He adapts accordingly. The same caution appears during the veto situation. When the crew debates what to do, Silvio stays neutral. Business logic without moral commitment. He understands that taking a firm stance is risky when Tony's emotions are involved. If Tony changes his mind, your opinion becomes a liability. Silvio survives because he never leaves fingerprints. He's always present, always involved, but never the architect. Tony can't point to him and say, "You made me do this." At the core of this fear is Silvio's understanding of Tony's self-image. Tony needs to feel superior, intelligent, respected. Silvio feeds that need. He validates Tony's ideas, he nods, he reinforces Tony's authority. Not because he believes every word, but because survival demands it. And when others complain about Tony behind closed doors, Silvio listens but never joins in. He understands that Tony doesn't need evidence to sense disloyalty. Once that instinct triggers, it's over. You can't argue with it. Even near the end, when everything collapses, Silvio never turns on Tony. He's exhausted, wounded, but still loyal because he understands the truth better than anyone else. Tony Soprano was never just a boss. He was a force. You didn't control him, you endured him. So was Silvio afraid of Tony? Yes, but not of violence. He was afraid of misalignment, of losing favor, of becoming invisible. His fear wasn't weakness, it was strategy. Every pause, every nod, every half sentence was intentional. In the end, Silvio's fate says everything. Silent, motionless, reduced to observation, just as he had lived. The quiet man beside the loudest voice in the room, the one who survived by knowing when not to speak, the one who loved Tony and feared him in equal measure. Because in that world, fear isn't a flaw. It's the mechanism that keeps everything running. And no one understood that better than Silvio Dante.